Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center?
Welcome to the InfoWars Nightly News. I'm David Knight. It's Tuesday, November 24th, 2015. Here are our top stories.
Tonight.
Allahu Akbar! Allahu Akbar!
Turkey shoots down a Russian jet, and militants open fire on the ejected pilot. The world watches to see what will happen next. That's coming up.
Russian jets, for a maximum of 9 seconds, may have been flying directly with GPS guidance on the border between Syria and Turkey. Turkey has been injecting troops for almost 5 years, paramilitaries, Al-Qaeda forces, into Syria.
Well, not since the 1950s has a NATO country shot down a Russian jet, but it happened today. This is something that has been building up to this kind of a climax for quite some time. We've had a lot of close calls. Look at some of these headlines in just the last month or so. October 22nd, Russian fighter jet has a close encounter with a drone. October the 7th, U.S. jet has a close call with a Russian fighter over Syria. October the 29th, U.S. jets intercept Russian planes near an aircraft carrier. We shouldn't be surprised to see this. We have American jets, we have Russian jets, we have Turkish jets, all flying over Syria. Now, of course, the Russians were invited by the Syrians. We weren't. And we all say that we're there to attack ISIS. But as Vladimir Putin pointed out, and I think as today's events show, that isn't the case, quite frankly. We need to understand that ISIS is a false flag. Not that it's a hoax. It's not a made-up hoax. They really are a threat. But they are a threat that we created, that we funded. And that's the genius of Matt Drudge, very succinctly saying today in a tweet, and of course it's his only tweet since he recently flushed his queue. He doesn't keep his tweets out there as a matter of record. But he said, a shocking truth is unfolding. America has been arming ISIS. Just hold that thought. America has been arming ISIS. That's the context in which you need to understand all of this. America has been arming ISIS. Turkey has been funding ISIS. They've been buying millions of dollars a day worth of ISIS's oil in these oil fields, pretending that somehow they don't know who's buying this. They don't know who's funding them. They don't know who's giving them the weapons. We're going to show you, in the next segment, Alex Jones is going to come in, and we're going to break down, we're actually going to show you a little bit of it in this segment, but we're also going to break it down in more detail in the next segment with Alex Jones. We're going to actually show you the missiles that the American armed terrorists used to shoot a search and rescue helicopter down today. First, let's take a look at the context of this and where this all happened. Of course, we see from a CNN Turkish English language version, they put out a flight path that came from the Turkish military. Now, the Turkish military is asserting, as you can see in that picture, that the flight path of that jet went over the very southern tip of Turkey. And as they say, it was a mere few seconds, a couple of seconds it was over there. That is the provocation to take this down, presumably. Now, the Russians replied with their own flight path that says, no, it was in Syrian territory the entire time. But of course, one of the things that is very disturbing and questioning about this is the fact that there's a private Turkish broadcaster, Haberturk TV. They just happen to be in the area, as well as Turkey's Anadolu agency. A couple of different Turkish news agencies were there. As one person tweeted out, Lindsay Hilsen tweeted out, how come a Turkish TV crew was in the right place, filming in the right direction as a Russian plane was shot down? Were they lucky or were they tipped off? Now, when the shoe is on the other foot, as Mikhail Thalen pointed out today in an article on Infowars.com, the Turkish Prime Minister then, Erdogan, who is also still the Prime Minister, said that a short-term border violation can never be used as a pretext for an attack. Now, when that happened, you had a Turkish jet shot down over Syrian territory. Today, they're saying that a Russian jet, which is essentially helping Syria, was shot down over Turkish territory. But of course, there was no reason at all for the Turkish jet to be in Syrian territory. They were not invited. They were not there to combat ISIS, as we all know. Yet this has been building for quite some time. As I mentioned at the beginning, we've had several close calls with American and Russian planes already, in spite of the fact that we have American politicians beating the drums, both Obama and Hillary on the Democrat side, and virtually the entire GOP field, as well as most GOP congressmen, beating the drums for a no-fly zone, for a confrontation between the U.S. and Russia. There have been some issues just in this last month with Turkey and Russia. Look at this article. NATO rejects Russian explanation of Turkish airspace. They point out that, and this was just back on October the 6th, again, about 7 weeks ago, NATO at that time rejected Moscow's explanation that its warplanes had violated alliance member Turkey's airspace by mistake. Erdogan said he was losing patience with Russian violations of his country's airspace. He said an attack on Turkey means an attack on NATO. Russian Defense Ministry had said that the Su-30 warplane that had entered Turkish airspace along the border with Syria for a few seconds on Saturday, a mistake was caused by bad weather. The MiG-29 locked its radar on the Turkish patrol for 4 minutes and 30 seconds, and a Syrian-based missile system locked onto them for 4 minutes and 15 seconds, the Turkish military said. So you understand the situation here is that they've got incursions from both sides slightly over the border for mere seconds. And of course, these are jet planes flying very fast. The borders don't have lines on them, folks. But this is what comes out of this kind of brinksmanship. And understand the overall context is that the United States and Arab allies are flying into Syria and bombing Syrian government positions, saying that sometimes they're fighting ISIS, but of course, ISIS continues to thrive unexpectedly. Now today, as this plane was shot down and as the pilots ejected and were parachuting down, they were shot. Presumably, at least one of them was killed. We don't know about both of them, but we have seen footage of one of the pilots dead. They were shot while they were parachuting down, and then as a search and rescue helicopter approached, it was shot with a TOW missile system, and the Syrian rebels chanted Allah Akbar. These are the moderate rebels. These are our allies, shouting Allah Akbar, shooting an emergency search and rescue helicopter, shooting pilots in violation of Geneva Convention who have bailed out of their plane, shooting them as they're parachuting down. Those are our allies. And if you have any question about this, take a look at this footage. Of course, when CNN shows the footage, they only show the helicopters searching for the downed pilots. They don't show them being shot down with this U.S.-made TOW missile system. But we will show that to you as well as the English sign on it saying what make and model it is. And as you can see, it says Traversing Unit Guided Missile Launcher M83, and then it says NO column, that'd be number 208520.
Отсюда и большая денежная подпитка бандформирования.
And certainly these military groups get their financing from.
Еще и удары нам в спину.
And now they stab us in the back, they hit our planes that are fighting terrorism.
Vladimir Putin's reaction to this is that he feels that he's been stabbed in the back by the accomplices of terrorists. Would you say these people are terrorists? If they shoot pilots who are parachuted out of their plane trying to get to safety, if they shoot a search and rescue helicopter, if they shout Allah Akbar, and if they do it with American-made weapons, are we accomplices to terrorists? I would say that we are. What about the reactions of our presidential candidates? Of course, back at the beginning of October, we had Carly Fiorina saying the U.S. must be ready to use force against Russians in Syria. She said the U.S. must be prepared to shoot down Russian jets in Syria if that's what it takes to protect U.S.-backed rebels fighting Assad. You know, like those rebels we just saw shooting the search and rescue helicopter. She says this is a tricky maneuver. It is a dangerous maneuver, but it's a maneuver we must undertake because we must make it crystal clear to Russia that they do not get to move into the Middle East and become the dominant outside power. Yeah, the dominant outside power in the Middle East is going to be us, whether we're invited or wanted or not, and regardless of whether or not our policies create more conflict than they solve. But of course, that's the whole point, isn't it? She says, yeah, this is going to be difficult to do, but we're going to do it. You realize now, as we've seen a plane get shot down, just how insane this is. But what are the reactions today from the candidates? Well, if you look at the Twitter accounts of most of these candidates, what you'll see is essentially crickets. Absolutely nothing but silence. Take a look at Donald Trump's site. Nothing at all there about it, just as we were going to air. If you look at Jeb Bush, for example, he's talking about the peachoid is still standing. Thanks for saving it. So this is somewhere evidently maybe in Georgia. I don't know, Gaffney, Georgia or something, but, you know, it doesn't have anything to do. You wouldn't think that something serious was happening in the world because Jeb Bush is talking about the peachoid.
We need to have a no-fly zone. We need to have a buffer zone for refugees. We need to provide.
No, I know that, Senator, but if they are attacking the very guys who we want to see topple Assad, you would let American planes just continue to pass them and let them do that?
No, but I might do what we did in Afghanistan many years ago to give those guys the ability to shoot down those planes. That equipment is available.
Who would be shooting them down?
The Free Syrian Army.
Gentlemen, we have called you together to inform you that we are going to overthrow the United States government. Do you still think that jet fuel brought down the World Trade Center? Does anybody else see a problem here? If the government has nothing to hide, why are they so afraid to answer a few questions? This story does not add up.